Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare.
Canto Punya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. The Supreme Controller, who possesses an eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening earrings swing to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokula, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging in the rafters of their storerooms, and who then quickly jumped and ran in retreat in fear of Mother Yashoda, but was ultimately caught. To that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances.
While singing his mother's whipping stick, he cried around his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and breathing quick, and his mother showed that now his blood in ropes. He shivered in fright, and his pearl necklace shook. The Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, was bound with his devoted love and offered him humble obeisances.
Those super excellent pastimes of Lord Krishna's deities around the inhabitants of Gokula and full of ecstasy. The devotees who are attracted only to his majestic aspect of Narayan and Vaikuntha, the Lord herein revealed. I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar. My obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times.
O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation, nor for eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor for any other boon. I would perish as your childhood pastimes constantly bear my mind. O Lord, I do not even want to know your future there. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be not be.
O Lord, the cheeks of your bride Krishna's face, which are encircled by locks of curling hair, have become red like finger food, due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are no use to me, but may this vision constantly remain in my mind.
O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow and almost like a
dead man, please shower the rain of mercy on me, uplift me and protect me with your nectarian vision.
O Lord God, your form is obeyed by the assured bounty to a grinding stone, the Lord for taught cows. You have freed the sons of Hare, Margarita, and Hare, who have cursed the scandalous trees and gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way, and most accurate liberation to your fulgence.
O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was formed from your abdomen, which was bound by a rope by Mother Yashoda. In this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimati Radharani and to your unlimited pastimes.
Shri Shri Damodar Sakram Ki Jai! Namaste Narasimhaya.
Hare
Kripa, Madhusudan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Shri Shri Gauranta ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Jnana ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपरकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपां साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। All right. So we're on chapter 8, text 10, question mark, 11, question mark, 12, question mark. Yeah, 12 today. Okay, thank you. So Sanskrit and translation in unison. Sarvadrarani samyamya manorhidi nirudhya cha murdhyanyadhayatamanna pranam astito yogadharanam. Translation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Text 13. Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan mamum nusmaran ya prayati tyajan deham sayati paramam gatim. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the Supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Text 14. Ananya cheta satatam yomam smarati niyashaha tasyaham sulabha partha nityayuktasya yogana. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Text 15. Mamupatya punarjanma dukhalayama shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana sangsiddhim paramam gata. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world which is full of miseries because they have attained the highest perfection. Text 16. Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartinorjuna Mamupeta tu konteya punarjanma na vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Text 17. Sahasra yuga paryantam aharya brahmano vidu ratrim yuga sahasrantam teho ratra vido jana. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. Text 18. Avyaktad vyaktaya sarva prabhavantya haragame ratriagame praliyante tatray vyakyakta samgyake. When Brahma's day is manifest, this multitude of living entities comes into being, and at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. Text 19. Bhutagrama sa evayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratyagame pashapartha pravatyahar agame. Again and again the day comes, and this host of beings is active. And again the night falls, O Partha, and they are helplessly dissolved. Text 20. Parastasmatu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yasa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu navinashyati. Yet there is another nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and it is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Text 21. Vyakto kshara ityuktas tam ahu paramam gatim yang prapyapna nivartante tadama paramam bhava. That supreme abode is called unmanifested and infallible, and it is the supreme destination. When one goes there, he never comes back. That is my supreme abode. And we started on text 12, right? Okay. Last text, 22. Purusha parapartha bhyaktya labhyastvanandaya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. Thank you. So now we'll be going back to chapter 8, text 12. Translation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Purport. To practice yoga as suggested here, one first has to close the door of all sense enjoyment. This practice is called pratyahara, or withdrawing the senses from the sense objects. Sense organs for acquiring knowledge, such as the ears, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch, should be fully controlled and should not be allowed to engage in self-gratification. In this way, the mind focuses on the supersoul in the heart, and the life force is raised to the top of the head. In the 6th chapter, this process is described in detail. But as mentioned before, this practice is not practical in this age. The best process is Krishna consciousness. If one is always able to fix his mind on Krishna in devotional service, it is very easy for him to remain in an undisturbed transcendental trance or in samadhi. So this reminded me of a few verses. The first one was the verse Yehi Samasparshaja Bhoga, that in the 5th chapter it's discussed that the sages, they don't engage in the pleasures of the senses because they have a beginning and an end. And it's stated there that contact with the sense objects with the senses is actually the cause of suffering. So I usually mention this verse, and we're trying to realize that actually the pleasure that I get by gratifying my material senses without connection to Krishna is actually my cause of bondage, which means I actually have to suffer. So we actually are going to hell when we engage in sense gratification. And the troublesome thing about this human birth is that we have a type of dream that we're living even while we're awake. And it's actually a bad dream. And we have to wake up from the bad dream to come to our real senses, our transcendental senses. So Prabhupada has an article where he discusses about this, that in this material world everyone is dreaming, and what is that dream? They're dreaming that they are the enjoyer, and actually everyone in this material world is Prakriti, which means we're the property of Krishna and we're meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. And Prabhupada describes in the purport to the Maha Mantra that he recorded on one of the early albums that we're struggling very hard to dominate over the material nature, and we're actually suffering because of that. And it's not actually possible. And if anybody tries, sometimes we played games as a kid or something that there'd be like a wave at the ocean, and we would stand and take the wave, or something like that, or like, these types of things. And we think that we're very strong, we take a few waves, but that's only when we're nicely situated, in the shallow end. But if we go out, where we don't have a footing, then we're completely finished. So if you just look at the percentage of the ocean that we can actually withstand, it's just like one little strip. And then there's the rest of the ocean that is completely smashing us at every moment. So the hard struggle for material existence, so this includes the 4 activities of animalistic life, which include eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So these activities constitute the hard struggle. What's interesting is that the Lord is providing all of these things very easily to all the creatures. And even in the Bible it's discussed that the Lord is providing for everybody, what to speak of the human society. And if you just look at the opportunities that the human society has versus the animals, you know, it's quite obvious that we're being taken care of. You know, we're being provided for because in this lifetime, material nature is affording us the opportunity to revive our dormant Krishna consciousness. And that's the law of nature. That when that human birth comes back around for a particular soul, then the person is given all opportunities to revive that dormant, you know, transcendental consciousness that he possessed in the spiritual world. So that was the first verse that I thought about. And then I also thought about how Lord Krishna describes how due to our karma, each soul is given a certain body which includes certain senses, and they're grouped about the mind. And your senses are different than my senses. And this is due to our past activities, what we deserve and what we desire. And as soon as we get that body, then our suffering is actually set in motion. Because getting the material body is a cause of suffering. Material body includes two types of bodies. One is a subtle body, made of mind, intelligence, and ego. And one is a gross body, which includes earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So these two types of bodies actually condition the living entity in this material world. And Prabhupada describes that the material body is the symbol of sin. The symbol of sin. I'll look up the word symbol. It's an interesting phrase. Oops.
The Journey Home, autobiography of an American.
That was an accidental plug. Keeps happening. So, symbol. Symbol from the Oxford languages means noun. A mark or character used as a conventional representation of an object, function, or process. E.g., the letter or letters standing for a chemical element or a character in musical notation. 2. A thing that represents or stands for something else, especially a material object representing something abstract. So I think that's the one. Sin is something kind of abstract, right? It's a more subtle thing. But this material object, this body, is a symbol of my missing the mark to be Krishna's devotee, you know, in the past. And there's always some pains and pleasures that this body is awarding the living entities. These are called kleshas or sufferings. And there's three types: adhyatmika, adhibhautika, and adhidaivika. So adhyatmika klesha, which means the suffering which is due to one's own mind and body. So I was speaking with Bhakti Koti, and he's a very thoughtful person. And he said, there's no comfort in this material world. He said, there's always some itch going on, some itchy feeling or some aching thing, some painful, disturbing thoughts, you know, some displeasurable sentiments and feelings that we can't even seem to locate, you know. It's just strange. If you have a bug bite, you know, sometimes we know, well, sometimes we can't tell, but usually there's like a localized epicenter of the sensation. But when it comes to the feelings, we're feeling anxious. You can't put your finger on it, why and where it is. It's not there on my skin. It's just covering my person. So these are sufferings, and the human being is meant to. That was one of the sufferings. The others are due to other living entities and the forces of nature, or the demigods. The human being is meant to recognize the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease. That's stated in the Bhagavad Gita as well, that constitutes real knowledge. When one understands the evils of birth, death, old age, and disease. And actually, I was speaking with my mother because my father is having some disease. And we have a friend, his name is Niraj, and he's a physician, and he works in the ICU for brain tumors. That's his specialty. He's a neurologist, and he specifically specializes in brain tumors, which is also what my father has too. So I told him that my father was going through that, and he was eager to render some service, try to help somehow with whatever he knew. And he told my mom, yes, I am a doctor, I work in the ICU. My mom said, wow, that's great. And my mother was retelling the story to me, and she told me that he didn't seem to see it the same way. He said, she said, wow, that's really great, And he was like, no, it's really not. Meaning that, my mother was saying it's great that, you have experience in this field and you can maybe help us somehow. But he was reflecting very personally and saying, there's no cure to these diseases in this material world, and I'm seeing people suffering every day. That's what he was saying. And there's no wonder he's so fired up, because he sees the suffering firsthand, patient after patient, day after day, shift after shift, in and out the door, right? And when we went to Colombia, and he got on the campus, he brought the prasadam and he was fired up to distribute it. He brought his box of books, he was fired up to distribute it. He got on the kirtan mat and he was chanting like anything, And he wants us to do Hare Nam Sankirtan in the Missouri Stadium. That's his vision. And this is a symptom of his realization that this world is suffering. And we read today that Krishna verifies that. He says that this is a certified place of discomfort. That's the same realization which Bhakti Koti was sharing, that you can't be comfortable in this material world. And actually Prabhupada has a purport where he describes that or maybe it's a lecture where I remember him speaking about the concept of trying to have an easygoing life in devotional service. They don't really mix, Easygoing is not the life of devotional service in one sense. In another sense, easygoing could refer to how simple it is. Easygoing means, okay, there's some basic tenets. I focus on a few things during my day, and if I put my focus on the holy name and my sadhana as the spiritual master is given, then I'm set up for success all day long. And I was speaking with somebody today, his name is Tom, he lives in Arkansas, Springdale, Arkansas. I don't know how he found Prabhupada's books or what, but he did. And he bought the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and he's been reading it. And he's been trying to devote what he does during his day to Krishna or to God. And he started chanting the Maha Mantra. He said, yeah, I like to go out on the stoop, on my porch before the sun comes up, and I chant, I chant a little bit, before the day starts. And I told him, yeah, that's exactly what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. And he was surprised that he got it right. He said, I don't know, that's what I thought I should do, so. And he told me, he said, he's chanting about 2 rounds, 15, 20 minutes, he chants 2 rounds. He bought himself a japa bag and some beads. And no devotee association until today, basically. Besides Prabhupada's books, this Bhagavad Gita as it is. So, he said, but he said something which was interesting, where he said, throughout my day, I look back to how I started my day, and it gives me such a relief, that's how I started my day, And so throughout the day, he's being nourished by that spiritual practice that he did in the morning. And it's nice to hear, because that's the whole principle behind why we're rising early and doing our sadhana. And he's chanting 2 rounds a day, not even within the temple complex, and he's getting realization about that principle. How much should be our realization? We're chanting, we're waking up every day, and we're chanting and we're worshiping the deity and so on and so forth, Sometimes there's a phenomenon that's like, we're immersed within the environment of devotional service. So we kind of, sometimes we may feel like, we're not getting anywhere, or we haven't made progress, or we don't have realizations or something. And what's really amazing is that when you associate with newcomers, then you're reminded how much realization you actually have. Or you're reminded at how much opportunity is actually there for you to get realization if you really wanted to. Or how much appreciation we should have for the process, We can see those things when we associate with newcomers who show some interest and some faith. Even from where they're at, with their experiences. Sometimes new devotees, they speak amazing transcendental realizations, which are incredibly valuable. And they that's what they've, that's what Krishna gave them, So nobody is here by accident. And we should see that it's very special, the realizations that devotees have had to come this far. So Niraj was telling my mother a little bit that, he sees a lot of suffering, and it's important to realize the suffering of this material world. And Prabhupada made a comment where he said, actually, speaking about the suffering of this material world and the futility of material sense enjoyment is a type of kirtan. This is our kirtan, Prabhupada would say. He says that we actually remind each other how much suffering there is in the material world. And that's actually glorification of Krishna. Why? Interestingly enough, he says it himself. He spends, how many verses are here? At least 2, but then he gives the details. Right? So he says, chapter 8, text 14 is very nice. This one speaks about one who remembers me without deviation. Ananya cheta satatam. He's easy to obtain. So Krishna says there he actually is easy to obtain. For one who remembers him without deviation. So deviation is actually the impediment, distraction or deviation, being deviated from our one-pointed attention on Krishna. And he says that it's because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So remembering the Lord without deviation is connected with constant engagement in devotional service. So that's the bright side there. And then Krishna starts to bash on the material world, not in a type of a dogmatic way, not in a sentimental way, but a very straightforward way. He says that, the yogis in devotion, they don't come back to this material world, which is full of miseries. Dukhalayam ashashvatam, temporary material world, which is a place of miseries. Dukkha alayam. And then next verse, he also says, Puna avartino, punar janma navidyate. That, right? And Prabhupada, he actually elaborates in this purport, where he reminds us, all our places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. All our places of misery. So Lord Krishna is actually continuing this topic of Dulgalayam, and Prabhupada is making sure that we keep that intact through the 16th translation. And then he gets into the details of why, what this cycle of samsara is actually looking like. And he talks about Brahma's day and everyone being helplessly dissolved at the end of Brahma's night, or at the end of Brahma's, or at the end of Brahma's day. At the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. And actually, this is actually described in the Bhagavatam. There's actually a sage who desires to see what is this Maya, and he is thrashed around in this annihilation. But he actually finds a little island with, takes shelter there. So we have to be a little bit realistic. And Prabhupada describes how, without becoming pessimistic about the material world, then there's no impetus for spiritual life, And especially with Westerners, or people from America or Europe and things like that, Russia, different places, then this suffering is really important, because our American dream and this Californication, this whole, fantasy of enjoying material nature, it's smashed, It's smashed. It's completely smashed, for some of us. And then we're thinking, well, what's the point? And then we try to become God, usually, like we were speaking before, I think a few classes ago. And then we realize that, that takes a long time. We spend a long time with all those notions. And it's not very pleasing, actually, to do all that philosophical mumbo jumbo and just losing track of time. And all of our relationships are weird because we're like simultaneously like trying to be other people while we're having an interaction. Like, I think I'm you, so there's all these weird things in the air. I have experience, strange stuff. So this is the whole nonsense with the impersonalistic idea, trying to attain mukti. And then, by Krishna's mercy, we meet the devotee, And by meeting the devotee, then all success is attained. And Srila Prabhupada described how he made his devotees' fortune. He made his disciples' fortune. Because there's verses in the Bhagavatam which describe how if one is practicing devotional service, specifically chanting the holy name of the Lord, it's to be understood that he has surpassed all the practices of the Vedas, regulative principles of the Vedas, going to all the holy places, doing all types of sacrifices and penances and, rituals and all these things. He's actually gone past the study of all the scriptures. He's done all types of crazy austerities, like surrounding himself with fires in the summertime and, bathing in ice in the winter for many, 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 many years. All types of yoga, all these things. He already did that if he's chanting. And so the devotees, they asked Srila Prabhupada, they said, does that mean we did that? And Prabhupada said, I made your fortune. And so that's the power of the pure devotee. So we're very fortunate. We should sober up. Mahotsaha Prabhu is very prolific book distributor, and that's what his WhatsApp status is. Sober up. So we should sober up. We should see this place is not fun and games. And we should take very seriously to the process of devotional service, which, can be prosecuted very nicely when we're humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige arising from the body and mind and so-called, accolades. Ready to offer all respect to others. I like that one a lot. That we're ready, we're prepared, we're excited, we're anxious to give respect to others. And we don't expect any in return. Expectation hurts relationships. Being accountable improves relationships, right? If I expect something from somebody else, then I may be disappointed. But if I am myself accountable to them, if I hold myself accountable to them, then they'll be pleased and they'll be satisfied with me. And that has to do with respect. So then, in such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Hare Krishna. Does anybody have an add-on? Some devotees? Okay. If anybody needs to excuse themselves to take rest and etc., please feel free. Yeah.
I don't think this one works, to be honest with you. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Can you put that microphone on the other one?
Oh, this thing? This thing?
That one doesn't have batteries?
This one is broken.
Let's restart it.
It won't stay on.
Right. You can just put that, yeah.
So I was just wondering why people do so many austerities just to realize the wrong thing.
Prabhupada has this cool thing where he talks about Hiranyakashipu's austerities to become immortal. And he says that doing austerities for something which is not possible is certainly in the mode of ignorance. So, people are doing all these austerities, but the results are not guaranteed, so that means mode of ignorance. Do you have any other thing about that, Prabhu? And was that satisfying enough, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Yeah, so realizing the wrong thing is an interesting phrase. Yeah. There's so many misconceptions that we're developing in the material world. Yeah, like for example, the people who are going to college and things like that, and doing all major studies and things, that they're doing all these austerities certainly, but if they accept, atheistic conclusion, which is the wrong realization, then it's just definitely an ignorance, and it's actually a shame. And it's our duty to be kind to those who are willing to accept that kindness and do distribution and give them prasadam. So, Dr. Joseph, did you have something?
Hare Krishna. I really liked what you said about Prabhupada, and that to understand that this is a place full of miseries is the very impetus that one needs to undertake spiritual life. And I notice when I'm preaching, this is the thing that shuts me down the quickest. If someone thinks that they're actually happy.
Yeah.
If I'm approaching someone and if I can see into their situation and I can see that they are indeed, struggling. We're all struggling in the material world, but if they think that they actually are peaceful, they think that they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
This shuts me down. I don't know how to go beyond that. So I don't know how to help them at that point. I don't know what to do for them in that moment. So maybe you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, actually, this is an interesting realization because I heard this from a really major book distributor. I think his name is Chaitanya Charan, or Chaitanya Chandra. He was a big distributor in South America, isn't it? He has a book. It's quite an extensive book, and he speaks about that person that you meet who thinks that they're actually happy. And he talks about how that's a really hard one. That's one of the harder ones. So, there is a book called Hiding in Unnatural Happiness, which may give some. Devamrita Swami wrote that book. It's published by the BBT. Many book distributors use that book. But there may be some nice insights there to shed some light on the illusion of happiness in the material world. Motive goodness, little bit motive goodness brings this feeling that we're happy because there's more or less an absence of sinful activities which are giving immediate displeasure. You know, if you pretty much live like a clean Moto goodness life, then you basically think that life is great because, you know, the birds and the bees and the sun and, you know, nice relationships, nice family, nice home, nice work, nice poetry, music. I mean, it's a very captivating material world, after all. So Moto goodness is that little place where we're just fine, you know, enjoying what we're enjoying. So, as far as my personal reflections on it, I just say if we can somehow not waste time unnecessarily, like if they're just not ripened yet, they're just, you know, and we can close it peacefully, you know, leave a good impression somehow and say, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for your time. And just shake their hand or something and walk off, you know. Or, and if more people were like you, the world would be a better place. Why? Because they talk to you. It's not a lie. They talk to you. That if more people talk to the devotees, the world would be a better place. Anyway, okay, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.